Hello everyone, welcome back to the next video lecture on methods and functions. We have seen classes, objects and more in previous lectures. Now let's talk about methods and functions. Basically, we have methods also only in object-oriented programming, but I just wanted you guys to know the difference. So I have put functions also. So the focus is on methods only. So what are methods? First of all we have to see methods. Basically, they help you, or rather, you can say that when you ask a system to do something to do for you, let's say if you want a computer to compute sum of two numbers, so that is what you're telling the computer to do. So it will help you to do that. So methods, basically you can say in object oriented, it is a procedure associated with a class, and a method defines the behavior of the objects that are created from the class. Okay, and we can say it like this also, that a method is an action that an object is able to perform. That, like I gave you an example, to find the sum, to compute the sum. So this is one of that. Okay, so you can say that methods are similar to functions. That is what I was telling you. They are similar to functions only. That is, you are asking a system to do something for you. So whether you write a function or a method, it is the same thing or a similar thing, you can say. We do not have functions as such in Java, but definitely you can create static functions, which we call static methods. Basically, we'll come to that. So methods, basically they are similar to functions. When we say similar to functions which are in C and other languages. Okay, so we can say that they're similar to functions in that they can have parameters and they can be used to perform tasks. So they can take in some parameters and perform a particular task. If you are computing something, you pass on the two values or three values, compute that and get the results. Okay, but there are some key differences between methods and functions. As I said, methods are associated with a class while functions are not. So without a class, if you have something which helps your process to be performed, like as example is again compute, so something like that which is without the class, if there is no class, then we call it a function, not a method. And secondly, methods can access the data of the object they are called on, while functions cannot, because they're not associated with classes at all. So methods are used to define the behavior of the objects, that can include performing actions on the objects, data, interacting with other objects, or performing any other task that is necessary for the object to function. So whatever instructions you are giving to the system to perform, it can perform that. Okay, so we have two types actually uh, of methods in object oriented. One is instant and the other is class method. Now instance methods are associated with an instance of a class. We'll see through it an example, but the class methods are associated with the class itself, and instant methods are used to manipulate the data within the object, while class methods are used to manipulate the data within the class. We'll see this through the examples. Okay, so we have here a small method which I have declared. We have a my class, and then I have a constructor, some variables I have declared. I'll be showing you in the code also. And then we have calc, that is computation, which is to be done. M is equal to x into y, finding the multiplication of two numbers x and y, and then we are storing in M and printing that. Okay, now we have two classes here. One is this my class and the other is my method. And by putting public here, when we put public with the class name, that actually tells my compiler that this is the class which it should be looking for as the main class. Okay, so when we compile, there will be two classes created, and one class is the main class from where the code is to be accessed. That is, the the compiler will be looking for main in this, and main has to be static. You can have another main also, right? You can have as many mains as you want, but the one with static will be executed first. Okay, that will be accessed first. So what we are doing here, we are creating an object of my class, this one, and since it is keyword use new keyword use, so we have dynamic memory allocation done here of my class, and my class is dynamically created. So, and then we are calling the function calc, and calc is here. You can see this calc is called, and this function calls, and this is a simple method. Okay, so the method, as we can say, that means this is telling the method to perform a task where it has to multiply two numbers. Okay, so in this case I have used two classes, and that is actually the way Java coding should be done. And we can have the object of the base class. We can create the object, like in our case we have created object of my class, and then we are calling the method using the object of my class. We'll be seeing now the different types of methods. So two types, instance method and class methods. So instance method are associated, they are associated with object of a class, instance of a class, and they can access and modify instance variables and are used to define behavior that varies from object to object. It may vary, and we can have instance methods in the class, or a class, or we can say class methods also. And instance methods basically are associated with a particular object. This means that they can only be called on objects that have been created from the class. That is what you have to keep in mind, that instance methods can only be called on objects that have been created from the class, right? Now, second one, we have the class method. Now, class method, they are associated with the class, obviously, and defined within the class, but are accessed through the class itself. These methods can access and modify data within the class, but they cannot access data within an instance of the class. And class methods are typically used to perform operations that are not dependent on any specific instance of a class. Okay, so they are methods which we can say associated with a class and rather than a particular object, like in case of instance methods. And this means that they can be called on the class itself only, or any object that has been created from the class, but not on instance of the class, right? So we'll be going through the examples and see that. Now there's another one which we did not mention earlier, that is a static method. Static method is interesting method actually, and sometimes people create a method, they call it a function. Static method, they call it function, but it is actually a method only. We'll see through it through example again. So in addition to instance and class method, there is another one which is called static in object oriented programming. And they are like class methods in that they are associated with the class and not an instance of the class. Like, but static methods cannot access or modify any data within the class or instance. They cannot do anything to the class or instance classes or the methods. So they are typically used for utility functions that do not require any state information. So if there is no requirement of any state information, you can use that. So they are the methods that are not associated with any particular object, and this means that they can be called without creating an object of the class. So you don't have to create an object of a static method, and I'll show you through the examples and see how it works, right? So first of all, let's have a look at the benefits you have while creating your methods. Why you should have methods in any language or in object-oriented programming. Now, these methods, they can be used to encapsulate code. Now, when we say encapsulate, this will be coming to the this video in the next section. But for now, I can tell you this means that the code for a particular behavior can be hidden away from the rest of the program. And this can make code more readable and maintainable. So it helps you in maintaining your code, and they can be used to reuse code also. Reusability is very important when it comes to object oriented programming. The backbone of oops is that only, so once a method has been written, so it can be used again, and this can save time. Okay, otherwise you have to create again and again. Suppose I have created a compute method, like in the previous example I have given that x into y. If I have to find if I have to calculate the multiplication of two numbers, then why I have to write it again and again when I have a method to do that? Okay, so reusability of the code is there, and they can be used to abstract away complexities also. Encapsulation and abstraction, they are the pillars of object oriented programming. So it helps in abstracting away complexities. Like this means that the details of how a particular behavior is implemented can be hidden from the user of the object. That is, what is not required for the user to see can be hidden away, and this can make code more user friendly, because now user is not interested in knowing what is going behind it. So it will be more user friendly and easier to understand. So I'll just need what I have to do, and I can just do that, right? Like I have to write on my system, my computer. I don't want to know how the keyboard works. It is something like that. Okay, so now we can have a look at some examples also, and we'll have in VS Code. So let's have a look at the example. This is the example I was creating. So let me put some variables here, int x, y, and z, and I'll put some values here. X is equal to 90, and y is equal to 22, and sorry, there's a hyphen there, so if you don't see that, it happens. And z can be 0, so I don't want to do anything with this. Now what we did was we multiplied the two numbers, so z is equal to x into y. We use a star to multiply in computers. Okay, I don't want this to come, but it has come somehow, so I'll just remove this. X into y. Okay, that's fine. Auto corrections sometimes, they can be little painful. Now system, it was giving me a suggestion actually, so that was not wrong. I chose to write println. I have a habit of closing the things before proceeding. So multiplication of two numbers. I can write it other way also. Multiplication of two numbers equal to, I have to put a plus as a separator, z. This gives me the value. Okay, Mm. So what we are doing here is a very simple program to do this. Okay. Now I need to create an object. So my class, my method, and my class. So my class obj is equal to new my class and obj dot we can call calc. Calc is here. Since it is a function, you have to put a round bracket there. Now we can save this, Control S, and I can run it using this. But VS Code sometimes gives me issues. Like in this case, it has given me an issue, so I will be more interested in using the command line arguments. So PowerShell gives me some issue sometimes. So what I can do is I can give the command javac my method right dot java. Okay, and you can see there's no syntax error, but it was giving me a computation error when I use the run command. It happens because it is looking for some PowerShells or something like that. So I can have these already, so I can remove them and then I can run it also. So what you have to do is you can compile and run. Sometimes if it doesn't work in VS Code like this, so you can actually simply say javac like this, javac method.java, java method, and you can run the code. Okay, so this happens sometimes, so you can don't have to worry about it. Just write down the commands. Javac is to compile the code, and then to run it we use Java. So in Java there is a JVM and JRE, and JVM you are using to compile and all. JDK is there, Java virtual machine is there, which helps to run the code, and JRE is the runtime library, runtime environment, which helps in running the code. Okay, so now let's have a look at the instance method. So I've already created it, and we can see, I'll just explain it. We have public class my instance, that is one class I have created. You can, when I've said that this is public class, that means I have only one class in this code. Okay, and private integer value, then we are using here value is equal to new value, that is assigning new value to value, that is set value, and get value, return the value to the function. So we are creating in the main method an object of my instance, and the object to set a value. We are putting a value that is 89 I have passed on. Then we are storing the result in obj.getValue. So whatever is returned here will be stored in result. Okay, so whatever we are storing returning from here is going to be stored here, because obj object is calling get value. You don't have to call set value. Okay, that is automatic. It is here. We are not calling it, we are just calling here, not here. Okay, and not in the result. It is not required in the result. It you can simply call the function, because we have to pass on a parameter, so we have to put on the value. Now VS Code actually gives you the variable also where we are putting, otherwise it will be something like this. And you can see that if I try to remove it, so it gives me some issues. And you can see, even if I removed this is not required actually, but VS Code will give you value also. You can see that. So it won't accept, but it helps you to understand in which variable you are passing the value. Okay, so it is more helpful. And if I run it from here, it may still give me an issue, but yeah, but it works this time fine. And you can see that the value returned is 89. That is what was passed to this, and this is what an instance method looks like. That is a method within the class, and it is an instance method. And we have two methods here. One is the set value, the other one is get value. So with obj.set value, putting the values in this variable, value variable, and when you call get value, you get the value returned to the variable result, and we are printing the result. Okay, so this is your example for instance method. Okay, so let's come to now class method. And in class method, you can see that there we require two classes because they are methods within the class. The class method utils private static final double pi, because pi value does not change, it remains the same, so it is final, and static, and it is double because the values are in fractions. Then we have a method calculate circumference, and we are putting the radius and returning the 2 pi r. That is what circumference would be. So math utility, that calculate circumference of a circle, 2 pi r. Okay, so we have the main class here. This, you can say this is the main class. And then the main method, public static void main string args. We are storing the values of radius to 5.0. It can be anything. You can have it 8, 5, 9, whatever you want to give, you can give there. Then we are creating an object. Okay, now we have defined radius also, and we have put value 9.0 there. And then we have another variable, that is circumference, which is double, and definitely it has to be double because it is actually getting the value in double only. So radius we are putting at 9.0, which is again double, and pi is again double. So whatever we are getting here would be double. So calculate circumference will be returning a double value. That's why the circumference is double. Now, in this case, we have not created any object. An object is not required. What we can do is, since it is a class method, I can directly call it using the name of the class. So if I use the name of the class, I can call calculate circumference directly. Okay, so we can call it directly and pass on the variable radius in this case and get the output. In our case, the output when we run, we get 56.54. That will be same because I have used 9 only. So you can see that the output is 56.548 and so on. So this is what we are going to get. So in class methods, we don't require an object to be created. Fine. Now let's go to static. I already have some examples here. Okay, so class is my static, and then we have a method called say welcome, and public static void say welcome, printing welcome to static method. And then we have the main method, that is main again with the string args, and here we are simply calling the method. In this case it is say welcome. So we are calling say welcome, and it welcome to static method will be printed. And let me tell you one more thing before I run the code, that static can access only static. That's why when I am calling say welcome, so welcome say welcome method has to be static only. So if I want to access this is declared in the class. So if I want to access any element of my static, that is which is globally declared within the class, main class, if I want to access that, that has to be static, whether it is a variable or method or whatever I'm using. Okay, so keep that in mind. Static can access static. That means static needs static. Okay, fine. So this is what we have to see and keep in mind. And in the coming lectures, we'll be talking about how we are going to deal with static, and more examples to come, more practice is going to come. But for now, we have this much in this video lecture. Next video lecture is on encapsulation, and which is one of the pillars of object oriented programming. So this actually concludes your basics of object oriented. Now comes the main part, that is your pillars of OOPS and so on, and we'll see them one by one with definitely examples and running codes, so you can practice these examples and see how they work. Okay, till the next lecture, have a nice day, keep learning and keep practicing.